Welcome to another season of Pro to Pro, where we sit down with entrepreneurs and successful business people and talk about their journeys to their success in their career. We go behind the scenes and have candid conversations with them and discuss health, relationships, fitness, and of course, business decisions, good and bad. If you're looking for inspiration, valuable business insights, and a dose of motivation, you're in the right place. Join me and my guests as we share our experiences, ideas, and stories that can help you on your own journey of growth and success. Welcome, and remember, keep it pro to pro. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Pro to Pro. I'm here with Dr. Hamadiya. Doctor, finally able to get you on your first podcast. Welcome.
Yes, I'm an introvert, so it's very difficult.
I know, but you're an introvert in a very extroverted business, and what I mean by that is that you have an incredible practice down in Miami, Miami Wellness and Aesthetics Center. I got to know you over the past couple of years with regard to the growth in your practice. You're a growing entrepreneur in such a competitive space. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us, even though it's not something that you ordinarily would do or like doing.
Yeah. I'm trying to come out of my bubble, so it's working.
Yes. And what's nice about that too is we talk a lot in the podcast and on my channels with regard to kind of embracing the discomfort of change or the discomfort of the unknown. Mm-hmm. And I did it myself with the podcast. I'd never done podcasts before. We started this last year. I knew nothing of it. And we're learning as we go through it all. But I think you're going to find it enjoyable. So thank you again. Perfect. Let me back up a little bit. We know you're a medical doctor. You're in an extremely competitive market down in Miami with regard to medical aesthetics in general. Were you one of those type of kids that always knew he was going to be a doctor, or growing up you had certain influences or things that took place to bring you where you are?
So I actually thought I wasn't going to be a doctor. I thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. Turned out both. Yeah. But until grade 12, I thought I was going to study business and take over the family business, which is selling vacuums. And in grade 12, I actually went with my dad's good friend, who's a family doctor. This was in Syria, because I was living there at the time. And he went to an underserved area and was helping people. And I was like, you know what? I really like this. And I just switched and I changed my mind. And I said, I want to become a doctor. So my whole life, I had no idea.
Give us a little bit of personal background with regard to that. And in other words, tell us a little bit about your formative years with your family getting to that point in 12th grade.
Yeah, I was born in Canada and we moved to Syria when I was about 9. So between 9 years old to 17 years old, before there was a war there, I was living in Syria. And I thought I was going to study business and go back to Canada, take over the family business. And then that's when I switched.
And are you the oldest in the family, the youngest?
Second oldest.
So brother or sister ahead of you?
So we're 6 boys.
Oh, wow.
I'm the second oldest. Yeah, my mom really wanted a girl. Didn't happen. They kept trying.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. So yeah, I have an older brother and 4 younger brothers.
Are they spread out all over the world, or are they close to you?
Everybody's in Canada, and they've all taken over the business except me.
Oh, okay. So your dad's business is still viable?
Yeah, and my second youngest brother ended up being the one that really took over the business and made it into a much better business. It's called Vacuum Specialist. So we have now 4 stores in Calgary, Alberta, which is in Canada, Western Canada. And they sell vacuums. And during COVID, my younger brother, he's very, he's young. Young people are tech savvy. I'm not really tech savvy. It took me 30 minutes to set this up. But he took over the business. And during COVID, he switched it to mostly online.
Oh, wow. So, I sense that even though you didn't know that you were, get into the medical field and be an entrepreneur. It was kind of in your blood. You probably saw your dad working, and the work ethic was instilled in you
Exactly.
probably at a very young age, even unbeknownst to you.
Exactly. Yeah, very true.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in Syria. How can you compare, what different nuances or things did you experience that you could share with our audience?
I mean, I think it makes you appreciate life a lot more, way more poverty. Back then it was very peaceful. There was no war there. So it was very safe. I'm 37. This was what, 15, 20 years ago. You play outside all day, you come back home. It's normal. Your parents aren't asking, where are you? Because they know you're safe outside, just playing, which doesn't happen anymore. But a lot of poverty, not a lot of opportunity. So you kind of forget that because I'm a Canadian, you kind of forget that as a Canadian, you can actually go back home and have a lot of opportunity. But when you're there, you forget that. So you feel like you're one of them now. So it almost makes you work harder. You have to study harder. You have to push more, and it builds this ethics in you it's really tough to get when you live in a country like here where you're handed a lot of things. I know we think we have it tough, but we really don't.
Yeah, so it gives you perspective.
Yeah, perspective, work ethic, it's very different.
So when you were going to school, what was what was the language that was, used? Was it English?
Arabic,
It was
which we
Arabic.
spoke no Arabic when we moved there. We only spoke English.
So you had to learn
Yeah,
at a
so going there,
9-year-old.
we had to learn an entirely new language. I was in grade 5, and my older brother's in grade 7, and the school there is very intense. It's not like grade 5, you're learning math that you would learn in high school in America. Their math is just another level for some reason.
Interesting. Wow. So
Yeah.
did you embrace school growing up? And were you the type of, were you a book student? Were you a jock, so to speak? Were you like
Not at
what were you
first.
growing up?
Not at first. I kind of hated it at first because you didn't know the language, and we had to have a tutor for every single subject because we just didn't know the language. So we had so many tutors. We were studying all day long. You went to school, you came back home, you had like a tutor at 4 p.m., tutor at 5 p.m., tutor at 6 p.m. until we finally learned the language. And then at that point, I started to be like, okay, now I could do better in school. And there, the way they do it is grade 9 is like a make it or break it. So if you don't do well in grade 9, you're pretty much done. You won't even make it through high school.
So they filter out based on your acumen for further education.
Yeah, which is maybe not the best thing because you end up having a lot of people that didn't finish high school.
So the education level, I never knew that. Wow. So you obviously did well.
Yeah, I did well, very well in grade 9. And then the way it works for them, like grade 12 is what dictates the rest of your future. So if you want to be a doctor, it's all public universities. So you can't just pay to become a doctor. You got to score 99.5% in grade 12 to become a doctor, because only that very, very, very small percentile of people is going to do that. And at that point, I didn't know if I was going to go back to Canada or not. And so I'm like, okay, I got to do very well.
You obviously ended up doing well. Did you have
I
to?
did, but not well enough to become a doctor.
Okay, so tell me what happened.
I mean, in grade 12, that's when my dad and mom were like, okay, so obviously the plan is you guys lived here long enough. You've learned the culture. You've learned to appreciate what you have back home. So after grade 12, you can go back home and study in Canada or America and do whatever you want to do. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm going back to Canada. I went by myself. I was 17, moved back alone, and I started my journey of becoming a doctor.
Wow. So your family had your parents had a plan all along with regard to this this move to Syria for you all. I assume you're Syrian by background.
Yeah, so Syrian. My parents are both Syrian, so we're Arabic. I mean, technically Phoenician, if you want to.
Yeah. Well, I'm Armenian and Italian, so sometimes people ask me, even the Armenians, you can split that up even more. But I know that Syrians and Armenians have a lot. In fact, my grandfather, who was raised in Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt, spoke Arabic, among the many languages. So I have a little bit of cultural, and then I have Sicilian in me as well. But let me get back to this. Is very interesting. So you go back as a 17-year-old to Canada. You're by yourself, and you're deciding, okay, now I've made this decision. I'm going to be a doctor. How are you able to facilitate that journey by yourself? I mean, what did you do at that point?
I mean, so you have to think of it now. It's like the reverse situation. I no longer speak good English at this point. So I have to come back to Canada. I have to do, it's called I think it's called a TOEFL or something. It's like an English ESL, English as secondary language. So I have to learn English again, go into college, upgrade all my high school that I did in Syria, and then start fresh college and then university.
So was it a delay?
Yeah. So, but luckily I was only 17. So I was already like done a little bit early. So I had a year to upgrade my classes. I didn't have an accent, but I couldn't really understand what I was reading in English. So I started studying again. And then at that point, I mean, I was at least good financially because my parents were helping me. I didn't have to work at least. But still, I was now back in my hometown, but I didn't really know a lot of people. I barely understood English. And now I have to become a doctor, which in Canada, we have maybe, I think, 13 medical schools. And it's also very difficult to get in. So, yeah, I started my biology degree. I did decent. I didn't do very well. I didn't really know how to study at that point. And I ended up going to the Caribbean for medical school, Grenada.
Well, this goes to show you when there's a will, there's a way, whatever it may be, and a lot of people go through that. At the end of the day, when you get a degree, it doesn't matter if you're first in your class or you're last in your class, you still get that degree, and that's your, you own that. So again, it goes to your resilience. I mean, this is an incredible story. So you actually let's just say you went backwards. Whereas as a 9-year-old, you knew and understood and spoke English. You immersed yourself in a culture for 10, 15 years. And then, not that long, 8 years. And as a 17-year-old, you went back, and you had to, not only did you have to learn English again, you had to academically, retain and learn, college, whatever it may be for college, biology, everything in English. Yeah. So that's a pretty incredible journey that you had to go on to do that. So sounds to me like nothing was stopping you. You were going to do this no matter what.
Yeah. And then now I'm in Grenada, which is an island in the Caribbean, and starting medical school. And even then, they didn't even put me into medical school right away. They were like, listen, your grades are okay. There's a program where you do 1 semester. If you prove yourself to us, then you can become.
I've heard of that.
Get into medical school.
I've heard of that. Yeah. It's to really weed out the people who.
It's called the Foundations program, which was amazing because I met my best friends there, and now these people are all my friends till today. So everything works out for the best at the end of the day.
So how was your support group during those periods? I mean, it obviously must be somewhat isolating in the journey that you're on, because it sounds to me like as you continue to step forward, you were always faced with a challenge. Your grades aren't good enough. You're not speaking the language properly. You're not going to get into this school. It's super competitive. How did you navigate that with a support group, or did you have one?
I mean, my family, they've always been around. We're close. We're relatively close. We're not like, if I have a lot of issues, I'll call my dad and talk to him about it. He'll help me out, but it's not like super, Arab families, old school. It's like they love you, they take care of you, but you don't talk to them like they're your friend. But I try to be religious. I'm close to God. I pray whenever I need something. I pray, and it helps that's what got me through it, honestly.
Your faith, your faith in praying.
Yeah, my faith. And financially, I was safe, which is really nice. Obviously, I didn't like asking my parents for money, but if I needed something, it was there. In medical school, I ended up having to get loans and stuff, which we dealt with later, but because it's very expensive. And I had no other option. It was like, this is what I wanted to do. There was no other option. There's no plan B. That's it.
So you jumped out of the plane, period, with the parachute. It's either going to work or not work.
Yeah. So after I went to Grenada, I did that little program for a semester. I got in. I did very well. I figured out how to study, which is what helped me the most. And then after that, I did a program where I went to England for a year. Newcastle, which is like northeast England, like super. It's called Geordies. They're kind of like Jersey Shore, but they're.
Oh, really?
Interesting experience. Went back to Grenada, finished another year, and then they move us to New York for a year for rotations. And then from New York, I came to Miami for 6 months, and that's where I knew, like, okay, I'm coming back to Miami after I'm done everything.
Oh, so you got exposure to a lot of different places through this.
Yeah, my medical school was Grenada, England, New York, Miami. And then I got into residency at Baylor College of Medicine, which is top 10 in America, amazing, in Houston. So I lived there for 3 years.
Yeah, that's Texas. Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, I trained there, and then from there, I'm like, okay, I'm coming back to Miami.
So you just let me guess. Was it the blue sky every day, the people smiling? I mean, I obviously fell in love with Florida too. I'm a transplant from the New York, New Jersey area, and right out of law school, I used to come down to Florida for spring break all the time, and I'd be depressed having to go back home, and the gray and the depression, and everybody dressed in black, and just.
I couldn't handle that.
Yeah. So you fell in love with it.
When I was in New York, like 4 a.m., dark, gloomy, rainy, having to take the subway to the hospital. No, wasn't it.
So again, you had another perspective, and so you kind of had this calling that you knew this is where you wanted to be in Miami.
Yeah.
So after you finish school, you get a degree. You have to do the rotations. We've had doctors on before. What did you end up specializing in?
So I did family medicine. At this point, I had no idea I was going to go into aesthetics. So going to residency, family medicine, I'm like, okay, I always knew I was going to open up my own clinic 1 year after residency. That was always my plan, which I thought I was kind of delusional, and I didn't expect to actually do it, but I told myself I would.
And did you do it?
Yeah.
So that in and of itself, so you knew right away that you weren't going to be working for someone.
Yes, I already knew that. I grew up seeing my father not work for someone. I can't work for someone.
Do you think it was because of that you had seen your dad do it, or do you think it was?
Yeah, I just like the freedom. Like sometimes he was off on Wednesdays and we would go biking with him, which, I mean, he still worked like 5 days a week, but still it was that freedom that he's like, you know what, we're traveling for a month. Let's go. Because
people that are going to be watching or listening to this will say, well, of course he could go and chase his dream because his parents took care of his students' loan. Yeah, his parents supported him. But you also mentioned that you did take out some student loans as well and had to deal with that. But do you talk a little bit about that? I mean, that's a big decision to go out on your own. How was that handled financially for you?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's more like a mentality. So you have to think of what can go wrong. If you want to think of it that way, what can go wrong? Okay, I open up a business, it doesn't work out. I go back to making $200,000 a year working for someone. Okay, big deal. So there's really no, and you start slow. Like I opened an office, my rent was $3,000 a month. It was tiny. I had 1 employee, and I had 3 other jobs. I was working at an old people home. I was working at another med spa 1 day a week. So every day of the week, I was driving like to a different part of the city until I built up my business.
So you're obviously patient. You knew what you had to do. You stayed focused. you know, that's extremely important. How about your life personally? Did you get married? Did you have a partner? How was that during this transition? Because
So
of course,
it's funny you ask.
well, because that becomes, we have these discussions all the time.
So when I moved back to Canada from Syria when I was 17, I met someone in college when I was 21, and I liked her, so I married her. Yeah, I was about 21 or 22 when I married her. A year after meeting her, I married her. We had a kid, and yeah, so I had a kid, and then we got divorced like a year later. Of course, you're young.
Yeah. I've been through
So
that.
throughout the whole journey, I was also trying to balance, like, okay, I got to go back see my son. My son's got to visit me. Whenever I have time off, I got to go see him. So yeah, that was another like little added challenge.
Well, that's a tremendous challenge because, you know,
Yeah.
that responsibility is huge, and
Yeah.
sometimes it breaks people, the personal
It
aspect
does.
of things, but you were able to stay the course through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that there were times where you said you had your faith that helped you, but you know, anybody
Oh,
who
for
goes
sure.
through the personal challenges of, you know, having a child, marriage, divorced, especially at a young age, where you're kind of aimlessly going through life, um, is always going to be a challenge. But it sounds to me like, you know, you always kept your nose to the grindstone. You just kept moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Let's fast forward a little bit to your emergence. I know you still do, you know, you have a general practice, but you eventually blossomed your practice on the aesthetic side. Where did the aesthetics come in as far as, you know, your interest in aesthetics?
So residency's 3 years. So I was training to become a primary care physician, which I still am. So around the third year, I was starting to think, okay, I'm going to try out aesthetics. If I'm good at it, I will continue with it. If I'm not good at it, I'm a very realistic person. I'll go back to doing primary care or whatever I was doing. So around third year, I'm like, let me do some rotations with some dermatologists. So I shadowed a few. I'm like, okay, I kind of like this. I have a good friend who lives in Beverly Hills, and he was doing this at the time. And I got him to do my Botox and kind of train me a little bit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of like this. So residency finishes. I get a job in Miami. This is really crazy because when I get a job in Miami, I also move locations about 3 times because they kept like, they went to one clinic, it failed. They went to another clinic, it failed. Went to a third clinic, it failed. But I was just getting moved around all over the place. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to learn from this experience to see what they did wrong so I don't do it. So I don't do that same mistake when I open my own place. So during that year when I was getting moved around, I told my bosses that I'm interested in aesthetics. So they're like, okay, well, that's perfect. Let's get some Botox. Let's get some people. Let's send you to a plastic surgeon. So I trained with another plastic surgeon in Miami and I started doing it. And then I had this epiphany, like I met someone when I was out once and she had 1 million followers. I was like, this is before people were using influencers. I'm like, hey, you have 1 million followers. Why don't you come let me do your Botox and I won't charge you. You just tell people about me. So her and her friend did that. And that's how I started.
What year was this about?
2018.
So
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 6 years ago.
so social media obviously was not as aggressive as it is now, we know, but it was I mean,
Yeah, but it was still there.
it was there, right? How and your particular experience with social media at that time was what? What was it? At a, you know, a level of 1 to 10, what was your experience with social media back then?
I mean, I didn't know a lot about it. I was using my Instagram for personal stuff, just like regular stuff. So I wasn't really big into social media. I had no before and afters. I had nothing. People just trusted me in the beginning.
It's actually extremely important because I have a lot of aesthetic providers that follow us, that listen to us. I obviously have the medical
Mm-hmm.
spa consulting practice. My wife's got you know, a medical practice, but the reliance on social media for your particular space, this aesthetic space is incredible. It can make or break practices.
Oh, for sure.
And it's good and it's bad, right? Because, and we'll get into it a little bit. It unfortunately, it can set false expectations for patients, but it is crucial in your industry to embrace it. But the industry with regard to the before and afters and embracing, that aspect of the practice. How was that for you in the beginning? You obviously knew to get, with this influencer, it could be something to help you. But how was it for that transitionary period back in 2018?
I've always been so in the beginning, everybody's on Instagram, and one day my friend was like, "You're always on Instagram. Why don't you use it for business?" And I'm like, "That's a good idea." So I kind of moved that energy towards, let's post for business, let's post for work. So that's when I opened my new Instagram, which is all for business with some personal. I'm still not very good at posting a lot. I don't like to post a lot. I'm more old school, but Instagram is very essential. People want to see before and afters. People want to see who you are, what your work is before they come in. So it's very important. I wish I could justify that I don't need it, but I do.
Yeah, I think it is extremely important. I think what it ends up doing in many instances, not only in your space, but in general, it kind of accelerates the, I don't want to say necessarily the trusted process, but it accelerates your visibility to this ubiquitous world that you don't know exists, and they're getting to see you. And if they see you on a repetitive basis, they feel like they know you more. So then when they do come in, when you do eventually meet with them, they kind of know who you are, so long as you've been authentic in your presentation on your social platforms. And embracing it. And you're younger still, you're substantially younger than me, but even so, depending upon, what your interests have been in evolving, you may not have had this interest in Instagram other than just a personal aside to keep in touch with friends and post here or there. But it is, I preach it now to my brethren and everybody that I deal with, that I believe it's crucial for the viability of businesses going forward. I don't believe it's a one size fits all, but in particular in your industry, because you have to, even though you're showcasing, and there may be some redundancy with regard to what you're doing to a particular patient, you have to show a authentic, personal, artistic side of what you can provide to a patient. And how do you do that solely with word of mouth? You can't. You need this medium.
Yeah, it's really true. And what I noticed is when you post what you are and what you believe in the industry is when you attract the right type of clients or patients. So in the beginning, I was doing more of, because I was posting Instagram models, I was getting Instagram models. So everybody wanted the big lips and stuff, big cheeks. Now my posts are more, let's make you look natural. Let's make you look younger. Let's make you look healthier. So I'm attracting more normal people.
So
I'm not saying they're not normal, but I'm just
yeah. No, well,
everyday person.
Well, let's just say there was a period of time also where, and it still exists, where everybody was craving this exaggerated look, right? I mean, that they had this idea of these big lips, everything was just exaggerated, period. And, there's a place for everything, I guess, as people go through this. And to this day, probably there are people that want that. But you essentially have to become true to who you are. And that includes, probably having to, let's just say, adjust a patient's expectations as well, in regard to what you can do for them and how they should look. Because again, in the world that we live in, where there's so much vanity going on, and it's all over the place, especially in your industry, there's these false expectations with filters, Photoshop, so many things that go on where I'm sure you deal with patients
Don't
that
get me
come in.
started.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting topic because many providers have to deal with this challenge.
Well, also many providers, one, they post themselves edited and face-tuned and face-apped. Two, some people edit their before and afters. Like if you look at my before and afters, you can tell this is just like a raw photo. This is how the person looks. But there's a lot of even videos. You could edit videos. You can edit everything these days. So that's the drawback of social media. The very exaggerated before and afters get the most views, and sometimes they're fake, and then you have to deal with that. And you have to sit there and explain to the person that that's not real.
So that's a good point. So you deal with, just like in any other industry, you're going to deal with nefarious individuals who are, basically lying to the general public about what's going on with these expectations, and you have to deal with that as they come in to see you. The other thing that we talk about, and I've spoken with, numerous guests and clients as well, is what they have to deal with is the cheapening of your industry. And what I mean by the cheapening of your industry is that, at the end of the day, you are still practicing medicine. And, you are a professional in what you're doing. And for whatever reason, the platforms with social media, with TikTok, and providers get judged by how many followers they may have now, as far as the acumen of their skill sets versus the quality of their work. So how do you navigate that in your very competitive market of Miami?
I mean, for me personally, I don't really look at competitors because I'm the type of person that I just focus on what I do, and I focus on the patients or the clients, and I don't even know who's outside. Every day I hear that a new med spa opened in Brickell. I'm like, I don't even know who this is. So I really don't focus on the competitor. I just focus on me and giving people the best results. And there's so many people that need this stuff done, and you will attract the ones that are good for you. I attract the professionals. I attract the housewives. 30% of my clients are men, hedge fund people and finance people that you would see on the streets and you'd never think or know they have Botox or maybe some filler, because it's the natural look. I've always liked that, and that's my style. So competitors, okay, maybe they're pushing a fake look and they're going to attract the people that like the fake look, but you just got to focus on what you're good at and what you believe in, and you'll attract that.
That's such a good point. And, my wife has a very similar approach that you have with regard to how she approaches the practice and, staying the course, just focusing on what you do and your particular patient base, and it will grow from there. She is moving more along the lines into a functional medicine practice as well, with peptides and things like that, because she believes
a lot of people are
in the internal as well as the external for purposes of, aesthetics. But you brought up an interesting point, because we don't get into it that much. 30% men, which I just let me touch on that quickly, because I get it. And a lot of people I know get it, but I also, but what I told my wife is like, don't exaggerate. I don't want exaggeration. And that's, as a man, you initially
you don't want anybody to know.
Yeah, you don't want anybody to know. And as a man, you also, have an innate fear for, maybe it's stereotypical. At least I feel that way about it.
You just don't want to look like. So someone told me this the other day, and she's a client, and she's like, I've never seen good filler done. I'm like, yeah, because when it's good and it's done well, you can't tell it's filler. That's the whole point. And I said this, I'm like, just like your lips. She's like, yeah, okay, you're right. We just see the big lips, the big cheeks. They're like, filler looks horrible. Yeah, but I literally have Botox everywhere in my face. I can move. It's been a while, but you can't really tell. I have Botox here, 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 sometimes here for migraines. Like, you're not supposed to be able to tell. That's the whole point.
Yeah, so that's an approach that you take that, unfortunately, a lot of practitioners don't. for whatever reason. Part of it could be
Mhm.
also the money grab. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends. I'm more long term. So like if you don't need something today, I'm going to tell you, no, you don't need it. Okay, I might lose money today, but now I've gained your trust and you know that I'm not just in it for the money. So you're going to come back and you're going to tell your friends. It's simple. When you're honest, people see that. Like, how do you know that I'm putting 20 units of Botox here? Nobody knows. I could be putting 5 units. You can't tell how much I'm drawing up. It's mixed. You mix the Botox a certain way, unless you trust me. So you have to trust me.
Sure, makes sense. And
But
trust is earned
yeah,
over time, and with
yeah,
numerous
it is. And
interactions with
people
people.
can tell. They feel your vibe. Yeah, they feel your energy. They feel your vibe. They see what other people are saying about you. It's body language doesn't lie. Energy doesn't lie. How you feel about the person doesn't lie. So that's how people trust you.
It's interesting when I do these podcasts. I have to sometimes think about the comments and the questions going back and forth, and kind of grab these
Mm-hmm.
nuggets. And one of the nuggets that I see theme wise that you shared with us in our discussions is the fact that you kind of transitioned into a place of confidence in knowing how you wanted to approach your practice, and recognizing that you're not everything for everyone, and that you're going to practice in
Yes.
confidence and deal with patients in the manner in which you want to deal with the patients. And the patients will either stay if that's what they like, or they'll go somewhere else. And frankly,
Mm-hmm.
if they go somewhere else, you don't care, because again, it's part of the noise out there of all these spas opening up here or there, opening up, closing up. You can't be
Exactly.
everything to everyone.
And a lot of people have went somewhere else because they wanted more lip filler or more dramatic results. Many have come back because they realized that, okay, that was the wrong approach, but some didn't, and it's fine if that's what you're looking for. I think of it in a way that if I was doing my own face, how would I want it to look? Or if I was doing my mother's face, how would I want it to look? Or my sister. So don't want it to look super fake.
Yeah,
It might
yeah.
look good on Instagram. Fake looks great on Instagram. But not in real life.
So with your approach in dealing with the patients, and then your engagement with social media, has it changed anything with regard to the stressors of your life? And what I mean by that is, you've obviously built up a successful, viable practice. There's pressures that get placed on all of us as entrepreneurs and business people, as far as, revenue, decisions to make in business, staffing, buildings, investments, things like that. How are you able to balance all that? I mean, do you embrace physical activity and health? Like, what are some? It sounds to me. I
Oh,
mean, I
for
know you a
sure.
little bit more, that you have a holistic approach to life, and your faith is
Yeah.
strong. But how are you able to navigate the challenges of life as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I think at this point in my entrepreneur life, it's actually easier in ways because I'm now working 4 days a week. I don't work on Wednesdays. I take Wednesdays off. Friday, I take an hour and a half off because I go to Friday prayer because I'm supposed to go to Friday prayer. I What else? I take Saturday, Sunday off. I relax. I hang out with my son after work or on the weekends. I bike on the weekend. I go to the beach almost every weekend. I'm probably healthier more now than when I started. It's always more difficult in the beginning. That's when I was working 6 days a week. I was driving to Pompano one day. I was driving to Delray another day. I was in the office 4 days. I only had one staff and I was doing everything else. But as you grow, you do less because now you have people working there, people helping you, and you kind of, it gets to a point where it's like how much you need. We're all getting older. What are your priorities? For me, it's like family, health, my religion, living good. Making money is nice, and helping people is also nice.
You covered the traits and bullets that I hit on all the time. And what happens in life, unfortunately, is the career and the chase for this this concept of what is success eclipses all the other things you reference that are so crucial to one's life, right? I see people my age where they may have, done everything they were supposed to as from a financial perspective, as a parent, but now they're chasing their health. They can't see their toes, their bellies stick. I mean, it's horrific. They're probably on 5 or 6 different medications.
Yeah.
I mean, and mind you, they may have money in the bank and they have their house, but what's the point? Exactly. And so if we can have another theme or nugget from, our discussions here to share with people, is that you need to be disciplined to self-love, and you need to take that time to balance your life, because how much is enough, right? It really comes down to it. And things don't make you happy. People, unfortunately, especially in the social media world, they see these things, cars, watches, whatever they may be. And listen, I admit I'm a watch guy. I'm a car guy as well, but it doesn't define who I am. My family, these type of things that I'm doing, in which I'm learning how to be better with a different skill set. Also coveting my personal time, whether it be at home, managing my practice and doing these other things, all in line for me in this one life. I mean, I remember years ago, and you could probably be the same, is that I never took vacations. It was just always work. I never took the time for myself. Whereas somehow it was spun into some type of guilt that I'm not allowed. I shouldn't be.
Yes.
I'd be diligent in my duties as a provider. But your approach, I say it time and time again, it's very important to your fitness, your health, your career, of course, your relationships, but they're not mutually exclusive. They should all be done and moving forward at the same time and watered like plants in the garden.
Well, the American dream mentality is work, retire. Okay, like what? You're 65. What are you going to do now? You can't enjoy much. You're in pain. I'm already in pain and I'm 37. I have back pain. But my mentality is more work a little bit and enjoy your life as you're younger.
So we talked a little bit about, the basically a holistic approach to life in general. And you've been disciplined. And I use the term discipline because it could be used multiple ways, in that you have essentially trained your staff and yourself to be aware of your calendar and the fact that there's going to be blocks of time that are for you, period. And basically have the schedule, if it's a 3-day work week or whatever it is, the hours that are there, that's the time period in which you're going to probably be your most
4 day,
efficient.
not 3 weeks yet.
All right, 4-day, but that's going to be, you're going to be the most efficient as well. But that's the time that you've allotted to work on your task, while the other time is your time. And that is so important because people get lost in the weeds on that. I've had to do that myself, where I block off certain days that I don't care that we can't fit something in at this time. These are the time periods that I'm in. I mean, absent I get an order from a judge, I have to accommodate. But for the most part, those time periods are mine. Just as going to the gym is my time, just as being with my wife and traveling is my time. And we've kind of flipped it a little bit because we go to the UK a lot. We travel across Europe a lot. Whereas those trips, and sometimes we do mix business with pleasure at times, but we do that because why are we working? To begin with, we want to experience life.
Exactly. Why are you working if you can't enjoy what you're making?
Yeah, it's just, and people get caught in this. The other thing that people get caught in that I want to, touch base with you on is people, for whatever reason, have this guilt associated with doing things for themselves. And generally it comes down to...
I used to be like that.
Yeah. So how did you get through it? Share with us. How did you get through it?
So this was after residency when I was working in a practice and they had a psychologist there, because we also, part of that practice was dealing with the drug addiction center. So I would go there as well. And I told him, I'm like, I don't know why, like, if I go buy myself nice clothes or expensive shoes, I feel guilty. He said it's likely from my upbringing, because I was brought up to like work hard and discipline and this and that. So enjoying yourself almost feels like, oh, you're not working hard, or you're not disciplined enough. So I don't know, I trained my mind to be okay with spending on myself. I mean, I still enjoy spending on others more than I do on myself. Like, if my son's with me, I'm way more likely to do things and spend more, because I just feel guilty if it's just me. But that's what he said was the reason.
I think that probably does have a lot to do with it. I mean, obviously, how we were raised, it's good and bad, right? We bring traits to the table that, whatever it may be, if you're raised in an environment, where you've seen, abuses, whether it be alcohol or something like that, you can go one or two ways with it, right? You could be like completely no, or you could unfortunately succumb to it. So there's a lot of different things that happen in life. I think that it's...
but as long as you can train your mind to change that and modify it, then you're fine. That's the key as you get older, is how do I modify my behavior? How do I modify how I feel about things?
Okay, I'm going to dig deeper there, because I know for me, I talk about this idea of just starting very slow with whatever I'm trying to do to change. And I tell people, if it's from an exercise perspective, you don't go to the gym and work every body part for 2 hours, because the next day you're going to wake up, you're not going to be able to move because you've overdone it. It's introducing different things to yourself. So how do you do that, or how did you train yourself to slowly embrace?
It has to make sense. For example, nice shoes last longer. Expensive shoes last longer. So, okay, it makes sense to buy expensive shoes. Expensive food is better quality usually. It depends. So it makes more sense. A nice watch holds value if you buy the right one. So it's not an emotional decision completely at that point. It's more of a logical decision. So you don't feel guilty about it. That's kind of how I do it. My G-Wagon holds value, so I buy it. And I enjoy it.
Sure. So it's like a methodical thought process in which you're get the collateral benefit is the reward as well.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So you're not like just eating ice cream all day. You're not just doing something just completely out of pleasure.
Yeah, it's like complete indulgence. Exactly. It makes sense.
You're still benefiting. You're hanging out with your friends. You're talking about something important. You're not just wasting time, so you don't feel as guilty.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I go to the beach. I bike to the beach. It's fun and it's exercise.
Multiple benefits.
Yeah. That's kind of how I justify it.
So it's a thoughtful process in general that you go through. I'm going to guess that you maybe also do a little meditation or something similar to that?
I pray. I pray 5 times a day. I'm Muslim. So even at work, in between patients, I'm like, okay, it's time to pray. I go into my room, do my prayer, it takes me 5 minutes, back to work.
And that helps you. Obviously, it's helped you through your whole life.
Oh, that's me praying 5 times a day is my sanity.
You have a very calming affect. Which I could see why the patients would embrace that.
Yeah, the patients love how calm I am. It comes off as monotoned on Instagram where I'm doing videos, but it works in real life.
No, I think you're coming across very sincere and authentic here, which is nice, especially the fact that I know you were nervous about the whole thing, but it's not a...
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm introverted, but when I enjoy the person or the people I'm talking to, I become an extrovert in a way.
Yeah.
I'm just not good with like talking to random people about random things.
Frankly, sometimes I don't have the energy. I mean, I try to limit where I'm going to go and speak. Like sometimes the discussion points with people, on these topics, and we don't get into politics on this platform, but
Yeah.
I don't even bother with having the discussion. That's a battle
politics is really intense in America.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not from here, so I don't know anything about it.
Politics is, yes, it's extremely, unfortunately, very inflammatory on both fronts. And, at the end of the day, I wish we could all just get in the middle and move forward. But, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. So briefly, let's talk a little bit about your affect and also being a leader, because you are running your business. So as a leader and running your business, you obviously have to make decisions, some of which are uncomfortable. You may have to terminate somebody. You may have to say no about something. So obviously it's not all, roses and rainbows. There's things that you have to do where you have to make difficult decisions. So how do you reconcile those as a business owner?
Let's say, for example, someone is not doing their job, right? Like that's usually the tough part. So I had my old manager before my current manager, and she was just not doing it. And my first thing that I told her was, is everything okay? Like, are you okay at home? Is everything okay? Like, what's going on with you? Because sometimes they have personal issues. Like I want to make sure, like, is this something that you're going through that you need to resolve and then you'll do better at your job, or are you just horrible at your job? So I try to figure out if everything's good at home, and like I give them a chance. I tell them a couple of times, this is how it should be. Like, I want you to be this way. If they don't change, then I have to find someone else. Sometimes my old manager, I actually hired someone to help her, because I'm like, okay, maybe she's overwhelmed, so let me hire some help. And then she was just messing up even more. I'm like, okay, this is not it.
You're not a passive aggressive personality in that regard.
I had to learn not to be like that.
Yeah. Well, again, that's coming out of your shell as a leader and as a business owner, where people in general, listen, I've unfortunately had to fire hundreds of people in different jobs over the years and in different roles. And it is not an enjoyable thing to do.
No, it's not. But that person also needs to realize that this is not a fit for them. They're going to find something better.
I was just going to say
just
that.
Like
yes.
a relationship. If it's not working, it's not a fit for either one. You will find something better.
Exactly.
It's okay.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you need to safeguard your business and ensure that it's flowing. The other part to that, and the nuance to that, is that other coworkers are watching. They are seeing how you are reacting or dealing with, whether it be a troubled employee, an employee that's not doing what they need to do, and how you, in fact, deal with that situation, whether you think they know or not.
Well, they say you learn the most about a person is when you end that relationship with them, whether it's a work relationship or a personal. That's when the true colors come out. So when your staff see how you fire someone, probably says a lot about you.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. How have you been able to essentially filter out who you feel would be a good fit for your practice? Because it's
I know the moment I meet them. The moment they walk through the door, I already know.
So you have a feel.
I have a feeling. A gut feeling.
And do you usually listen to that gut?
Oh yeah. Sometimes I don't, but then I regret it. But usually I do.
So first impressions mean a lot to you.
Yeah, it's just my gut. My gut knows. Just the way they walk, the way they talk, what they say, everything. I hear everything. I see everything.
Presentation.
I can tell what they say and how they say it, what they want. Maybe because I see 20 people a day and I interact with them. I'm not just injecting your faces. I'm talking to you. I'm asking you about your life. So I learn a lot about you.
Your business is so, let's just say, all-inclusive of so many elements.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is when you engage with patients, it is not just providing the treatment and moving on in a vacuum. There are ongoing dialogues, personal dialogues. There's a lot of things that goes on in your industry.
Yeah, so I walk into the room. I have 10 to 15 minutes to meet you, get to know what your definition of beauty is, understand how much you are willing to spend, how many sessions you want to do this in. And it's like a whole like it's not just like, okay, let me do your Botox. I have to know, do you just want Botox? Do you want me to balance your entire face? Do you like filler? What is beauty to you? How much money are you willing to spend? And do you like to do this in one treatment or multiple treatments? It's a whole thing, and you got to do that in 10 minutes because you don't have time. So that teaches you a lot about people.
Yeah, multiply it by, how many patients you may be seeing a day. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 15 to 20. Yeah.
So collectively,
and you can't
then
make them feel rushed.
Yeah, they've got to have you. Yeah, they got to have you. You're 100%. So it is an interesting skill set that you develop. It's similar to what I tell people with regard to my podcast and what I'm doing in real time with you now. I've taken thousands of depositions of people that I never met before, maybe in people that I may have met before, and I have to be intuitive to listen. Now the settings were different in that, many times it was a litigation involved. So people have a tendency to have their guard up depending upon the circumstances. But what it taught me over time is that what people say is not always what they mean. And I also became an observer of presentation silently. In other words, when somebody comes in to see you, or you meet somebody for the first time, how they're dressed, how they behave, how they act when they don't think anybody is watching them. There's so many nuances to it.
For me, it's even how do they sit in the chair? Are they like this? Are they moving away when I'm like drawing on them? Are they scared? Are they nervous? It's a lot of psychology, which I love. I've always loved psychology.
Oh, I could tell. And that's probably why you're successful. I mean, for me too, I never thought I would be like that, but I am the same way. Yeah. And kind of like what I'm doing now, it's the same thing. I'm taking all those other skills, and I help people essentially get out of their own way in many instances. The clients that I have, obviously for the legal perspective that I deal with, that's one thing. But when I get into this mentoring and consulting aspect of things, generally speaking, these people just need a little guidance in some respects with regard to what they're doing. And they need to feel that, I don't want to say reinforcement, they just need to feel a sounding board at times about things, or maybe just a fresh set of eyes on something. But it's that holistic approach that you're taking that you've been able to transpose into running the business too with the staff it's basically to ensure that the vibe is what you want the vibe to be in your practice, exactly. Right?
Yeah. And the vibe is very calm. I got these Alexas here. They play spa music. The staff I choose is calm. They're not like super loud and out there. It's just, that's my style. And it works. And people like it. People don't want to come in here. Certain injectors, they walk in with their loud music and that's just not my vibe. I think everything is psychology. Markets are psychology. Stocks are psychology. Crypto is psychology. Everything's psychology at the end of the day.
And you've also taken on an approach where you're very comfortable and confident in who you are and how you're going to approach, well, not only your life in general, but your business for sure.
What's meant for me is coming to me, and when it's not meant to me is not going to come to me. Simple. Yeah. I'm going to still work for it really hard, but if it's not meant for me, it's okay.
For everybody who's watching and listening, take that to heart. It means so much.
In Arabic. What's meant for me will come. Maktub means it's written. That's what we believe. Maktub means what's meant for me will come to me, and what's not meant for me will not come to me, no matter what I do, but I still have to put in the effort. That's the key. You have to put in the effort.
Yes. Love that. Thank you. Well, I think with that, we're gonna end the podcast. It was great. I know that you've got a busy day ahead of you, and thank you for taking the time. I appreciate all that you've done and taking the time to talk with us and share your life story and your business model to our listeners and our viewers. I think they're going to find it incredibly motivational.
Thank you.
We wish you the best.
Caught me off guard with the backstory. I didn't know I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, I like to do that, and I have a tendency to do it organically so that we don't know on the prep side. It makes it a lot more enjoyable.
Part of my brain has blocked that part of my life out, unfortunately, because there was a lot of stress and trauma with it, but it was an essential part to where I am.
Yes, we're the sum of all our parts, good and bad. And I think that's also part of life. And I really appreciate it. Well, thanks again for coming on. And remember, everybody, keep it pro to pro. That's all for today's episode of Pro to Pro. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our guest and gained some valuable insights into the world of entrepreneurship. Like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes, and don't forget to follow us on social media. Thanks for watching and listening, and remember to keep it pro to pro.